It is February here in Iowa, and I've done something today that I've never done before. It's an experiment, and I'm taking you along with me. I've been so excited to get seeds going for my garden, and every year this time of year I have to fight myself to not get my seeds started too early. I think you probably understand that if you're a gardener. I learned about this process called winter sowing a few months ago. Have you ever had a volunteer plant come up in your garden in the spring? You didn't plant it, but a tomato came up or an onion came up. Well, nature knows when the seed needs to grow. So, this concept of winter sowing is really just about letting nature take care of what it's supposed to take care of. You can start winter sowing seeds as soon as you have consistent temperatures below freezing in the wintertime. For us here, that's probably going to be like end of December, January. But you can do winter sowing anytime throughout the winter because your seeds are going to be dormant until the conditions are right for the seeds to germinate. So the benefits of this are that you don't have to have space to start your seeds. You don't have to have grow lights. You can get your seeds started early without having to have that big push in spring to get everything done. You don't have to stick to a seed sowing schedule. So you don't have to know exactly when things need to be started in order to be ready for the garden. It just, nature does it all. Unless you're getting a long period of time without rain or without snow, you don't have to worry about watering these. When you get ready to plant in the garden, your seeds are already going to be hardened off. They're already used to being outside. So you don't have to have a period of a couple of weeks where you have to harden them off outside and then plant them. So this is kind of like a set it and forget it way of starting seeds. And we're going to get into how to do this right now. I have a lot of seeds that I want to do winter sowing with. In fact, I'm going to do winter sowing with all of my seeds. I mean, if they don't come up or they don't work out, I can always go to the greenhouse and buy some plants, right? So I'm going to try winter sowing with everything, including flowers. It does not just vegetables for your garden, but today I'm going to be winter sowing some radishes, some onions, and also some cabbage. And I'm only going to have time to do a couple of jugs, but I want to get it done and show you how it's done today. First, you're going to need some containers. Now you need containers that are fairly translucent because you want the sunlight to be able to get inside that container when it's time for the seeds to germinate and grow. The common theme here with people that do this seems to be using milk jugs. So we're going to be using milk jugs today, but you can also use clear plastic totes with clear lids. Plant them in regular pots, set them inside the tote, put the lid on the pot, put the lid on the tote. People use all kinds of things, ice cream buckets, any clear container could be used for this. Now, when you're preparing your containers for this, you want to be sure that you have plenty of drainage holes in the bottom. I enlisted the help of Dan the man to help me drill some holes in the bottom of my milk jugs. And to make our little greenhouse, we're just going to use a carpet knife and cut around little more than three sides of our milk jug. And that way we can open it up and plant our seeds in there. And we also can open it up in the springtime when it does start to get warmer and they need some more ventilation. So you need to prepare your potting soil. You need to hydrate it before you put it in the jugs, otherwise it's really hard to hydrate. You don't want it sopping wet, but you want it very wet, enough to be able to clump it in your hands and not have water squeezing out of it and not be too dry. So we've got our soil. This is just a regular potting soil, a good potting soil. This is the black gold potting soil that I'm using today. It feels so good to be able to get my hands in dirt in the wintertime. You know, you're always itching to garden when it comes to be about January or February. And this is another good reason to do this. We want to make sure we have about 4 inches of soil in our jug. That way we don't have to worry about the soil drying out as much as if you had a more shallow area where you were planting. The idea here is to cut down on the work and not have to water so much or at all. So keep that in mind when you're cutting your jugs, that you want to have about 4 inches there. As far as depth, we're going to follow whatever depth is on our seed packet. We don't really, since we're going to be transplanting these, we don't really need to pay attention so much to the spacing, because they'll just be small, hopefully small, when we transplant them. These are cherry bell radishes. The planting depth is about 1/4 inch. We may end up having to thin these out. I don't know, because this is the first time. This is a learning experience for me. But boy, will it cut down on some work if I can plant ahead of time. Now we're just going to kind of gently tap this over on these. Now what we want to do is we want to be able to label this container. So we have an industrial super permanent ink Sharpie. Sharpies really aren't recommended for this because they wear off in the winter weather, and I was unable to find a black paint pen to ensure that I know what this is if it wears off. I've cut up some old window blinds to make some kind of markers here. So I'm just going to take one of these. We're going to put this in our container. That way, if something happens to my mark on the outside, I'm still good because I know what they are. The next step is to seal up this container. Okay, and we're going to use duct tape to do that. You want something heavy and strong that's not going to be affected. Oops. It's not really going to be affected by the winter weather. So we're just going to start at one side. And seal this up. Now, the reason you want to go all the way around and seal the whole thing is because of moisture loss. And then in the spring, when nature says it's time to come up, they've got a good protected spot with moisture and dirt and sunlight coming through and ventilation at the top. Now, you should put your containers where they're going to get weather and at least partial sunlight. I'm using the back porch. I'm just going to set them out there. I'm going to let them freeze. And we don't have a roof or awning over our back porch, so they're going to get plenty of weather and plenty of light. Now, if if you have an extended period with no snow or no rain, you want to kind of keep an eye on them, because you may have to put some water down in there, open them up and water them. It just depends on how much moisture you're getting. But if you're kind of in a little drought, you want to make sure your seeds have enough water. One way to kind of test is, you know how heavy it was when the soil with the moisture in it when you planted them. So if you lift up a jug and it feels kind of light, probably you need to put some water in there. And this especially is going to be important more towards spring, when your seeds are probably going to start germinating. Once it's warm enough for your seeds to germinate and the seedlings have started to grow, once it gets to be like 50, 60 degrees outside during the day, you'll want to be able to either open up those containers and let them, let the air flow and let them have some sunlight, some direct sunlight, or you want to make sure that you cut some more ventilation holes in the top of your container to let them have more airflow in there. You don't want to start something like mold or anything like that inside your containers, so you want to have good airflow once your plants start coming up. And then too, when you know the temperature is going to drop at night, you want to go ahead and close them back up if you've opened up those containers. So the first of my winter sowing is done. I didn't get everything done that I wanted to, but here's a start. So there you have it, a set it and forget it method of starting seeds that you can do in the middle of winter. Are you going to try winter sowing? Let us know down in the comments. Is this something that you already do? Have I just been in some kind of la la land and not understood this concept? Let me know down in the comments. We hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next time.